Hi people, me again obviously, Moreno Ravenberg as always, and as usual. As you can tell as always, and as usual, the header already says it all. I'm gonna briefly discuss why I'm gonna discuss banishing and grounding and why they're not recommended. Simply put, banishing, as people that practice, as well as grounding, they already know what the definitions are, but for people that don't know, I'm going to give you a short definition. Banishing is when you host ritual for an entity, a spirit, or you engage in any other magical technique, and and when you're done, you essentially carry out a subsequent ritual, a banishing ritual specifically. So a ritual that has its intended purpose or has the intended purpose of banishing all the energy from your ritual space or the space in which you carried out set rituals or those confines. Now, grounding stands for engaging in any mundane activity after you've held ritual, after you've hosted ritual, and and yeah, in relation to these rituals, the plain and simple answer is if you're a practitioner, generally speaking, it's not recommended you do so. Not if you want your practice to be as effectively as possible. Okay, the only situation in which banishing and or grounding, in which both at the very least banishing only would be necessary. Let me start with banishing first. For starters, banishing, the only way generally speaking in which banishing would be practical is if you summon multiple spirits a day, but even then it's practical only in theory and not in actuality. Yeah, hold on, stupid. I'm in my hammock, stupid ants crawling up or down from the tree. Yeah, that's the only way in which banishing and or thingy would be practical. That's the only way in which banishing would be practical, and even so, it's only in theory. In reality, it's strongly recommended that you do not do so. I repeat, that you don't do so. Um, the thing is that when you banish, you essentially, it's like starting from square one every single time. If you want to build up experience as a magician, you need to simply leave things be after you've hosted ritual. Unless you see, for example, that it has like a couple of negative side effects. But even then, my point is banishing is a last resort. If you notice negative side effects in your life, then obviously you need to revise your approach, as in, hey, you need to establish or confirm that, hey, the ritual I held for spirit A was the reason or cause, or that ritual that I held earlier is the reason that all of a sudden I'm seeing that, for example, this is malfunctioning, this is not working properly, etc., etc. But generally speaking, again, it's not recommended that you banish. The whole point is that when you host ritual for a spirit, okay, the lingering energy automatically adds to your resume or repertoire. So when you leave all that energy lingering, that energy will only make you stronger and more experienced, and that will make spirit summoning by default easier. But it's like essentially imagine laying the tiles on a driveway, okay, like the one in my background. You lay one row of bricks or two rows of bricks, and then you keep removing them, you know. Or it's like being in a boat, and so for example you catch fish as a fisherman, and then your colleague literally throws, for every fish that you catch, he throws that same fish overboard. It's just again, it's like carrying water to sea or water to the ocean. It's impractical, okay. And you'll notice that results in general and your level of experience will be much better when you don't banish. So you just leave your ritual space filled with energy. That energy will keep building and building and building and building and building over time, like that. um, and for grounding, doing a mundane activity isn't really necessary. You simply go about your day after you're done hosting ritual or doing whatever you intended on doing, in a matter of speaking. That's the only way in which to do things honestly, effectively. But people that lay, it's impractical to lay an unnecessary or high amount on grounding. It's impractical to simply lay a heavy emphasis on grounding. It's simply unnecessary. When you After you post the ritual, you don't just say, "Oh, okay, now I need to let me see. I need to go outside. I need to do some landscaping, some gardening. Oh, okay, I'm done now. Let me go watch a sitcom or something." No, you simply do whatever you feel like doing. My point is grounding will happen naturally, okay, after or before any ritual activity. You simply need to go about your day. you want to become better and stronger, you need to understand that your ritual practices and or habits, they need to be part of your life. They need to be no different than the clothes you wear, you brushing your teeth, etc. You always brush your teeth, you always take a shower. It's not like, okay, something happened, something distracted you, and then all of a sudden you're not going to take a shower. That's my point. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter whether come high tide, low tide, and vice versa. Doesn't matter whether the metaphorically, in a matter of speaking, the world comes to an end. You will still brush your teeth. You'll still take a shower. You'll still go to the bathroom and blah 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 blah. It needs to be that same thing. Okay, magic. Your practice needs to be a way of life for you. Doesn't matter whether you're not feeling up to it, unless you feel like, hey, something really bad is gonna happen. I'm gonna faint because I'm too weak. My intuition is telling me. No, you need to keep at it. Even if sometimes you're not feeling it, you're not up to it, just keep doing it. Sometimes you're not in a mood to go to work, and yet you go to work anyways. It has to be a way of life. Just because, for example, you're feeling a little under the weather, doesn't mean that you all of a sudden say, you know what, I haven't showered for 3 days, but I'm not gonna shower. I'm just going to, yeah. So you're just gonna stew in your own filth. No, you take a shower. End of story. It doesn't matter what you do. It does not matter. You still do so. You don't stop eating. You don't stop doing anything. Your practice has to be on the same value, at least in theory, or at least metaphorically speaking. Doesn't matter what happens, what you do. You need to keep doing things. You need to keep doing them. A simple example for me, for example, is that years ago in 2017, like 6 years ago, when I was only a beginner, I there was a time when I was sick. I mean, I was so sick that I kept puking, and there was nothing in my stomach. As in, my stomach was so small that I could literally, the second I started puking, you start gagging. Point one, there was nothing on my stomach, and point two, I literally felt, I heard my stomach walls literally contract inside my stomach, and it creates like a slapping noise like this, plack, plack, and I literally heard that. Back then I was way skinnier, etc., especially people that know me, like ultra super duper skinny. I think I weighed like 100 pounds or something, or maybe even less. Yeah, anyways, as opposed to now, obviously, but now I'm made out of pure muscle, even if I say so myself, and exposing myself to ow, stupid ant, exposing myself to divine energy and whatnot, the spirits I work with, and all of my own energy, which is divine in nature, has made it so that now, again, I have no real weight on me. It's pure muscle, and now it's like 85. I weigh 170 now, so I put on like 70 pounds of pure muscle. Anyways, back then I was like, so sick that I couldn't even walk. Like I said, I just had to puke every single 15 minutes or every hour, and I literally couldn't walk. I could only walk short distances, like maybe 100 meters, 200 meters, and stuff like that. Not even 100 meters, let's just say 50 meters. And the spirit I worked with back then, the very first spirit was my beloved Lord Samael, my primordial Lord, the Archangel Samael. And I worked with Samael, and obviously later my beloved Lord of Lords, Lord Sandalphon, entered the equation. And now, in given order, Sandalphon comes first and then Samael. My point is, back then I worked with Samael first, and it was only him, maybe Klonek as well, but I think primarily Samael. Samael was the first one. It was only Samael. Yeah, it was only Samael. And again, I had to host ritual, and even in that state, I still hosted ritual. Every time I felt like I wanted to collapse, for example, I briefly went back to sleep, and that's it. Then that's my point. I was literally that sick to the point where I could barely walk. I had to keep lying down all the live long day. I took sick off of work. It took me like, a week or two? A week approximately to recover. And yet, when it became Tuesday, when Mars is at its strongest, I still hosted ritual. Because back then I offered food, so I had to cook a lot, etc. It's like cooking for 4 people, in a matter of speaking. Everything, rice, meat, everything, a lot of it. Or a substantial amount of it at the very least. And I still did so. I did so unequivocally. Again, it was a no-brainer to me. I could have also just said, you know what, I'm not feeling too well. Okay, Samael, you can see how I'm not feeling well. I won't be able to host ritual. No, it does not matter. It literally does not matter. I hosted ritual, period. It was my duty to him to as well as towards myself. And I said to myself, no, I need to cook. It doesn't matter what happens, doesn't matter whether I have to buy food, does not matter. Second example, I remember another situation in which I literally was completely broke. I couldn't even buy food for him, honestly. So I offered what little I could. Literally, it was only like essentially the same meal I ate. It was like only one plate of food. And I simply told him, you can see for yourself what time it is. I literally have nothing on me. So I have no other choice but to only offer this. And of course he understood. My point is, see, it does not matter what fucking happens. You treat this the same way you would treat your arm or your hand. It is an integral part of you. So it has to be a way of life, period. But referring back to the header of this video, again, generally speaking, do not banish and do not ground. It's not necessary. You just do your thing and that's that. End of story. Only in exceptional cases, the likes of which I discussed in the beginning of this video, do you do so. For example, again, you banish or you notice that, hey, I want to host ritual, but like the energy that's still present is contradictory to the energy that I'm supposed to do now, or the energy that I want to work with now, etc., which will rarely happen, rarely. Only in a case like that would banishing be warranted. But for the rest, especially if you work with the spirit in the long term, you do not banish. That ritual space is for that spirit. That spirit can literally have that space, in a matter of speaking, and it will work to your detriment if you banish. Okay, just like I said, you work with the spirit, you work with Samael, for example. Samael's altar is his altar. You want to become better and interact with him better and see better results. The energy needs to build up. He needs to be able to build up energy. Whenever you host ritual for him, that's a buildup of energy, and that energy needs to stay there. It needs to be a permanent foundation. That way the energy will keep growing stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. But it's like giving someone $10. $10 is nothing, but over the course of a year, every single week, is a lot of money. It's 360. It's 12 times 4, 48. See, 48 times 10 approximately equals 480, yeah. But if you're just going to, for example, you give someone $10 and then the person spends it, or you tell the person spend it, then you're not going to get anywhere, and it's only going to be that measly $10. And it just goes on. And with grounding, like I said, you don't ground as well. You've done it, you just go about daily life. Like I said, your mind will automatically go back to quote-unquote normal mode, the mundane mode. But you don't have to specifically say, okay, so now I need to do something else. Nah, these are old school techniques and they're heavily outdated. And honestly, no offense to anyone, but I think there wasn't much thought behind it. I don't know why people came up with those ideas specifically. It's you just need to. It doesn't make any sense logically for all the reasons I already explained. So yeah, simply don't do any of those things. My guess is, in a matter of speaking, that again there was no logical thinking behind banishing and or grounding, and it's simply it was simply meant purely for the sake of academia, or it was applied for the sake of academia. But that's all there is to it. There's nothing worth mentioning in any case. So that's all, guys. See you later. Bye.